you for bearing with me, if you're still there. Let me just get this up so I can see who is joining. Here we go. Hi Emma, thank you. Yay! We're in. Hi Paul. Hopefully if I move this a bit further back, you'll be able to see me as well as the stove. Just twist it a little bit. Hi Colleen, hi Ariel. Hi Angel, thank you. Good stuff. Right guys, so while we wait for a few more people to join, I will just introduce myself. So I'm Nikki. I'm actually still a student at the Vegan Chef School. So unfortunately the lockdown situation meant that our supper club, which was our final phase of the chef school training, had to be postponed. So we've got 2 classes left. I'm really excited to get back in after all this is over and see my classmates. And we will be serving a 9 or 10 course tasting menu to the public. So maybe we'll see some of you there. That would be lovely. A bit about my background. So I started out my career as a sport nutritionist. I graduated with a master's from Loughborough University here in the UK. I then went on to work in the food industry as a nutritionist, and from there I went into innovation, which is looking at new concepts and a little bit more creative, which is where I kind of let my passion for food come through into my career for the first time. And so I've been doing that kind of role for about 5 years now, and then I started at the Vegan Chef School in January. So I'm hoping to take my career in a more culinary direction, but keeping all of that innovation and nutrition experience at the forefront as well, hopefully. So today I thought I would show you a high protein pasta sauce recipe, which is one of my favourite go-to kind of midweek dinners, even pre-lockdown. You know, if you just want a really quick, really nutritious evening meal, or even lunch, this one is ready in basically as long as it takes your pasta to cook. You can customise it, so I'll show you some ways to customise it. And actually it's a really good one for now because the sauce is all from store cupboard ingredients, so they're things that will last for a long time in your pantry. You can buy them, you stock up on them, and then you can just keep knocking this one out and try lots of different variations. And yeah, so I will talk through the recipe, I'll talk through some of the nutrition around the recipe. You can absolutely fire away with questions. I can't profess to know everything about nutrition, but I know a bit, so I can share with you my knowledge. Yeah, so ask away. There's a couple of questions coming in. Emma said, love your apron, where's it from? I get this question a lot. So my apron says plant powered, I don't know if you can see that properly. I actually don't know where it's from. It was given to me as a gift, and at the chef school I was wearing it, and we all tried to Google where it was from and we couldn't find one exactly the same. So I'm really sorry, but maybe one day we can do an apron sale and make some. Another question here, how long is the course at the Vegan Chef School? So it's 12 weeks and it's every Saturday, and Day can give you loads more information about that if you drop her a message or send her an email. But it's amazing, there's so much content in there and so much useful practical knowledge as well, so things like careers talks and nutrition talks, and really it creates you this kind of network around vegan chefing, which I found really useful because it gave me a real sense of what I could do with the course and not just the kind of hands-on making recipes in the kitchen. There was a lot more thought put into what else you can do with it and the other skills that you might need around it to create your own business, say. So I'm going to start with the recipe. Don't think there's any more questions just yet. We'll start with the recipe. So if I talk you through the sauce first, and I'll talk you through why each ingredient is there. So we've got silken tofu here. So silken tofu is a bit softer than firm tofu, as the name suggests. And actually it's quite fragile, so when you take it out of the packet, it does it is quite easy to break it up and kind of end up with lots of bits. Doesn't matter here because we're going to blend it anyway. So we're going to just drain that off, and we'll pop that straight in the blender. So what this is doing here is adding a creamy element, but it's also adding lots of protein for us. And I'll come on to talk a little bit more about protein in a minute. And if anyone's got any questions about protein, fire away. Then we are going to add in some soy milk. So I've got unsweetened soy milk here. I usually buy unsweetened soy milk. It's really good. I find it more versatile than the sweetened type. The sweetened type is fine in your tea, your cereal, baking, but when you're making a savoury recipe like a bechamel or something like that, the unsweetened one is just a bit more flexible. So if I want to use it in a sweet way, I can add a sweetener to it. If I don't want to, then I can use it in a savoury recipe. So that is just going to, again, add a little bit more creaminess and richness, but it's also going to help the sauce loosen and help us to blend it and to move the blades in the blender. Next up, we've got nutritional yeast, which is our vegan gold. So this is a really good source of B12 if you get the fortified version, but also it adds a kind of earthy, umami, slightly cheesy flavour. The amount we've got in this recipe as a base recipe isn't a huge amount. We're only using a tablespoon. So it's not going to make it super cheesy, but if you're a big fan of nutritional yeast, or you want that really kind of cheesy flavour and savouriness, you can add loads more if you want to. So I've added up to like 3 tablespoons before, but I quite like, if I'm going to take this in different directions with different flavours, to keep it as a kind of blank canvas, if you like. So that's just there to give us a little bit more depth. And then we're going to add some dried garlic granules. So usually I would use fresh garlic in most instances, but actually for this I find that the dried garlic is a little bit more mellow, and it actually is a great thing to have in the cupboard in case you can't get fresh garlic. So at the start of the lockdown, when the supermarkets were a bit ransacked, I was struggling to get fresh garlic, so this became my best friend. Lots of my recipes start with onions and garlic to get that kind of base of flavour going, and you can also get dried onion granules. So they're a kind of good thing to have in your cupboard, just as that extra little depth of flavour. You don't necessarily have to make it garlicky and really kind of like heavy on your breath, but you can just use a little bit of it just to give a bit of an extra boost of flavour. And then we're going to add some cider vinegar, so just a teaspoon of cider vinegar, and that little bit of acidity just lifts the whole sauce and just gives it a real nice roundness of flavour. And then of course a little pinch of salt, just help enhance all those flavours in there. So in terms of your protein, this sauce, 1 serving of this sauce is about 10 grams of protein, and then depending on what kind of pasta you're going to use with it, the portion size could give you between 20 and 30 grams of protein. So I'm going to use this penne from Delverde, and this is mostly whole wheat, but it also has 30% chickpea flour in it. So that means it's got a little bit more of a boost of protein and fibre in there. So with this pasta and this sauce, we're going to get about 30 grams of protein in a portion, which is a really decent amount. If you wanted to use just straight whole wheat pasta, it would be about 25 to 28 grams. And if you're going to use something that's gluten-free, like a brown rice pasta, you will have slightly less protein, but you still have about 20 grams overall. And when we're looking at protein, I often get lots of questions about how much protein we need. So as a general rule of thumb for healthy adults, day to day, just kind of for maintenance and repair of the body's tissues and keeping you healthy, you need about 0.8 grams to 1 gram of protein for every kilo of your body weight. So to work out how much that means for you personally, all you need to do is know your body weight in kilos, pop into your calculator on your phone and times that weight by 0.8 grams. And that will give you the amount of grams of protein you should be aiming for in a day. Now, there are a few exceptions to that. If you are someone who is really active, or if you're someone who is elderly, say over 60, 65, your body is not going to respond, or your body is going to need more protein to achieve the same effect. So you might want to boost that up to 1.2, maybe 1.6. Some bodybuilders even go up to 2.5 grams. But actually, a lot of that is not really required. for most people. Then in terms of how you're eating that across the day, you want to be spreading that throughout the day and trying to get some protein at each meal, or perhaps in your snacks across the day. So you don't need to be having protein shakes and all sorts of things like that. You can get enough protein through like pulses, tofu, soy milk, nuts, seeds, those kind of things. And actually some of your grains will have proteins in as well. The only thing to bear in mind with being a vegan and your protein is looking at what we call complete proteins. So essentially proteins are made up of these little building blocks called amino acids, and we are able to make some of those in our body already from different chemicals, but there are 9 essential ones, and so what we're looking for in our diet is to be getting those 9 essential proteins. And with animal proteins like meat and things like that, which we obviously don't eat, most of those sources are complete. When we look at things like pulses, grains, seeds and nuts, together they do have those essential amino acids, but separately they don't necessarily. So you want to be mixing those sources of protein and getting lots of different variety into your diet. What I will say is soy is a complete protein on its own. It's one of the only plant-based proteins that has all of those amino acids. So this is a really good one. And this portion size of protein is great for post-workout or just a good evening meal. So that 20 to 30 grams of protein is about as much as your body can handle at one time in an efficient way to stimulate that muscle repair and growth. So now I've waffled on about nutrition. Hopefully that was useful to you. And if you've got any more questions on that, we can keep going, keep asking the questions, but I'll get on with the recipe now. So what I'm going to do is I've got some water that's just boiling here. So we're going to start with our pasta, get our pasta boiling. And this is basically how long the recipe is going to take. It takes as long as it takes to boil your pasta, because the sauce is just blended and then stirred through your cooked pasta at the end. I should also say as well, there is a rainbow hiding somewhere in the kitchen today. So points to anyone who can find that. I'm just adding a little pinch of salt into my pasta there, just to season it as it cooks. So I'll leave that to just simmer away. And while that cooks, I'm going to talk you through some of my variations on this sauce. So one of my favourite things to do is to add in some sun-dried tomatoes and a little pinch of chilli, and you get this really creamy kind of like pinkish orangey sauce, and that lovely umami flavour from the tomatoes. So I've got some sun-dried tomatoes here. I'm not going to use them today, but these ones are just dried. So if I was going to use these, I would soak them in some boiling water for about 5 to 10 minutes beforehand, just to soften them and help them blend into that sauce. You can also get them in oil in a jar, and if I have those ones in, I just drain them from the jar and pop them straight into the blender, and they will blend up fine. Another variation on it, you can use some wild dried mushrooms, so you can soak those down, just pan fry them off a little bit to give them a little bit of colour and a little bit more flavour, and then pop those into the sauce, blend them through. That will turn it a slightly kind of brownish grey, as mushrooms do, but I think we have to just embrace that mushrooms aren't always the most beautiful colour, but they taste absolutely delicious. Okay, I think we have some people who have spotted my rainbow. But we'll see if you're right. Okay, and my last variation that you can do on this sauce is you can add some fresh basil and you can add some lemon zest, so you get like a nice, really herby, almost pesto-y kind of creamy pasta. Then the next thing we can do to jazz this up even further is stirring. You can stir veggies through it, so you can do any roasted veg, any pan-fried veg, and then we can look at different toppings as well. So some of my favourite things to add to this are just really simply some extra sun-dried tomatoes just chopped up in there. We can have some different fresh mushrooms that we pan fry off, mix that through. One of my absolute favourites, which I have coined a fun little name, is the cabbage nara. So you can pan fry off some Savoy cabbage or white cabbage until you get some nice little crispy browned edges, and you can stir that through the pasta and you get this just gorgeous kind of carbonara-y, really healthy, delicious pasta. It's my favourite way to eat cabbage, and I quite often get them in my veg box, so that was a bit of an accident that I discovered that one, but you can have that one. And then in terms of toppings, what I love to do is add something crunchy, which is going to give like a nice extra texture. So that could be something really simple like a toasted pine nut or toasted seeds. And today I'm going to show you how to make some crispy breadcrumbs, which the Italians call pan grattata, which also they kind of call it peasant's parmesan. So obviously Italians will have pasta, they'll put parmesan all over it. We're not going to do that, but a lovely little addition that you can add on top is these crispy breadcrumbs. So we are just going to fry them off in some olive oil with a little bit of garlic and some herbs, and then we can sprinkle that over the top of our pasta, and it's just delicious and gives you almost like you've done a pasta bake but you haven't had to do that work. So we'll start our crispy breadcrumbs. These are my breadcrumbs. You can use gluten-free breadcrumbs if you need to. This was just a couple of slices of bread that we didn't use up. So I blitzed them down, put them in this silicone freeze bag, and then flatten them out, seal it, and you can pop those in the freezer, and these have been out for about 15 minutes. So I'm just going to fry them straight off from there. And you can make a bigger quantity if you want to of these, and they'll last a few days in like an airtight container. So we will just pop a little bit of oil in here. This is just olive oil. Could you use oat milk instead of soya, Alice? Yes, you absolutely could. You can use any dairy-free milk. I just use soya because that's what I have in. Right, so we'll let that heat up a little bit. What I'm going to add to my breadcrumbs is I've got a clove of garlic here, which is a fresh clove of garlic. I'm using that here because we're going to cook these breadcrumbs out. It's going to flavour them nicely, but we will cook that kind of raw garlic taste away. Got my crusher, and then I've got some dried oregano and rosemary, which I'm really loving right now. I have got a few fresh herbs growing in my windowsill, which is lovely, but we can't always pop to the shops and get some nice fresh herbs. So these two are nice kind of woody, savoury, lovely herbs that work really well as dried herbs. I sometimes find some of the herbs that are kind of more vibrant, soft, fresh herbs don't kind of translate as well into a dried form, but that's just my personal opinion. Another question here, can I use soy cream instead of soy milk? Yeah, absolutely. You might want a little bit less, and you might just want a little splash of water just to help it loosen, because soy cream will be a little bit thicker. Right, so our oil is nice and hot. I'm going to pop our breadcrumbs in. I'm just going to use about half of these, which is kind of a nice generous handful. Just pop those out of the way. And then we just want to move them around in that oil so they get nicely coated. And then we'll crush our garlic straight in. And then you just want to kind of mush the garlic into the breadcrumbs so you don't have any big clumps of garlic. And just let those toast off. It smells absolutely amazing, and it's so simple. This recipe, Emma, serves 2 people, thank you for asking. So if you want to serve more than that, obviously just multiply it up a little bit and you'll be absolutely fine. It is a really easy one to multiply as well, actually. And I'm going to use a food processor for the sauce, but you don't need a food processor. If you've got like a little smoothie blender or a jug blender or something like that, that's absolutely fine. I unfortunately just smashed my smoothie blender cup the other day, fell off the work surface. My housemate and I were discussing this morning, we're going to rename our kitchen the Clumsy Kitchen because we seem to have a few breakages going on here the last couple of weeks. Thank you, Paul. I like to seem organised on the surface. I don't know if that's always true. Okay, so if I just show you these breadcrumbs, you can see the bigger ones are still quite white, but the smaller ones are getting nice and golden. So really you can want your breadcrumbs quite even, but clearly the day that I blitzed these I wasn't feeling very patient. But we'll just give those a couple more minutes. You want your heat quite low for this. My heat on my induction hob goes up to level 9 and I've got it on level 7 to give you an idea. If you go too high you're going to burn some of those crumbs before the rest are cooked. And the same would go for toasting off nuts and seeds. Keep your heat kind of low and even and move things around so that you're crisping up and toasting different parts as you go. If you get burnt nuts or seeds or burnt breadcrumbs, you're going to add like a bitter, not very nice flavour to your dish, which you don't want. And now they're kind of almost ready. I'm just going to pop my herbs in. I didn't want to add these too soon because they're dry, they might burn. There's not much moisture in here, so they might burn on the pan if we leave them too hot. So I'm just putting about a teaspoon each of those into there. And you can absolutely customise these crispy breadcrumbs with whatever flavours you like. So if you want to put some chilli flakes in there, personally I'm a little bit of a wimp on spice. But if you want to, I've also done it with lemon zest, which is amazing and gives a really nice freshness. So they are ready, and you'll hear, I don't know if you can hear that, you can kind of hear them scraping in the pan, which tells you that they're crispy. So we will just put that to one side off the heat while we finish off our pasta. Could you use white vinegar instead of apple cider vinegar? I don't see why not. I haven't personally tried it. It might just be a slightly harsher flavour than your apple cider vinegar. So just maybe try a little bit less, taste it, and then add a little bit more if you think you need to. Okay, so let's start our sauce. So just pop open our tofu. So this does have a little bit of water in it. So I'll just take it over to the sink and just gently place it upside down in my hand and let that water just run out. It's not quite as wet as your firm tofu would be. Just give that a little shake. And then we'll just pop that straight in the blender. Nutritional yeast. I'm just going to keep this one classic today. I'm not going to add any additions. As I said, you can add whatever you like. Then our garlic granules, so half a teaspoon of these. I'll do a generous pinch of salt. Nice teaspoon of the cider vinegar. And then our soy milk, which I've measured out, so I've got 100 ml there. This is quite noisy, so I apologise in advance, but I'll be back with you in a second. Scrape the sides down just to make sure everything's mixed in, and then just give it an extra little zip. so I will just try and show you this. You've got a lovely, creamy, smooth sauce which has hardly any fat in it. It's super high protein and absolutely delicious. And all we're going to do is just wait for our pasta to finish cooking. We'll drain that off and then we'll just stir the pasta sauce through the pasta. And the heat of the pasta is going to heat that sauce up for us. We can put it back on the heat and just gently stir it through as well. And then we'll serve it up and we'll pop our breadcrumbs on top. Right, okay Cameron, yes, I can read out the recipe. And we will share the recipe in written form as well. So you want a 300 gram pack of silken tofu. That gives you about 290 grams of actual tofu. So you just drain away that little bit of water and then pop that in. You want 100 mils of unsweetened soy milk or any plant-based milk. You can use almond, oat, cashew, rice, and any other that you can name. You want 1 tablespoon of nutritional yeast, half a teaspoon of dried garlic granules, 1 teaspoon of cider vinegar and a pinch of salt. Sue, haven't got garlic granules but do have garlic salt. Could I use that? Yes, you absolutely can use garlic salt. Just leave out the pinch of salt that I put in if you've got garlic salt. And the soy milk was 100 mils. And I just read out the ingredients, I hope you got that. If not, I'll just run through them quickly again. We've got silken tofu, soy milk, nutritional yeast, dried garlic granules, cider vinegar and a pinch of salt. Hello Debbie in Toronto. Oh, you want this for breakfast? Amazing. I haven't tried that. I have had some weird breakfast this week actually. I've been making lots of different recipes and eating leftovers for breakfast, but maybe I'll have this for breakfast tomorrow. Sounds great. Okay, so I think my pasta is just about ready. So we'll take it over to the sink. I've got my colander in the sink already, so I'll just drain that out and then pop it back in the pan. Okay, so I'm just going to turn the heat off. My hob does stay hot, so if you're on a gas hob, you could just turn it down really low. And we'll just take this blade out. And we're just literally going to scrape our sauce in there. And then stir it through. And you can see it's quite a generous amount of sauce to pasta, but that is how I like my pasta. You could go a little bit more pasta if you wanted to, if you like it less kind of wet. So there we go. Any more questions? Happy about the recipe as I found 4 boxes of silken tofu. Oh, Sue, you're going to have a great time with this. And what herbs were in my breadcrumbs? I put some dried rosemary and some dried oregano in there, which are my 2 favourite, like woody Italian vibes to put into dishes. Quite like oregano just sprinkled over a bowl of pasta or over like a marinara pizza. Really love it for that. Okay, any more questions? Just having a little look at the poll that Dave has posted here. So, vegan diet. I'll just chat through these different nutrients here. So B12, this is one nutrient that is a risk factor for a vegan diet. You are at risk of potentially becoming deficient if you choose a plant-based diet, but there's lots of things you can do to avoid that. So one is to include fortified products, so things like nutritional yeast. Just make sure that you pick one that is fortified with B12, and you want to be including that in your diet a fair amount, so into stews and pasta sauces and things like that. You can also get B12 from things like Marmite, a yeast extract. That will give you a good dose of B12, so on your toast in the morning. You can also cook with Marmite. It's amazing at like enriching stews and gravies. I like sauteing mushrooms with a little bit of Marmite for a stir fry or pasta. That's lovely. You can also take a supplement, just make sure that the supplement that you've got is a vegan friendly one. Protein, not many people too worried, it doesn't look like, about getting enough protein from their diet. Hopefully it cleared that up. But if we want to talk more about protein, you can give us a shout. Iron, so iron is a tricky one, potentially. You can obviously take a supplement, but you can also get it from things like leafy green veg and dark green veg. Just one little tip with that is to help your body absorb that iron better. You want to pair it with vitamin C. So you can get vitamin C from citrus fruits, from tomatoes. So if you're sauteing some spinach, perhaps put a little bit of lemon juice in there, or have some tomatoes alongside it. It's a really lovely little combo. Okay, and then calcium was the last one. Doesn't look like too many people are worried about calcium either, but your tofu is a good source of calcium. And also your plant-based milks, which are shop bought, are generally fortified with the nutrients that would be rich in cow's milk. So things like calcium, iodine, vitamin D, some of your B vitamins will be in those milks. So whilst it's really nice to make your own homemade milks, if you want to do that and you have the equipment and time to do that, actually just bear in mind that your shop bought options will have those extra nutrients added, so just make sure you're thinking about where else you might be getting those from as well. I'm just going to check for any more questions. Yeah, you've all found my rainbow, which was hiding just behind here, tucked into my basket. Okay. Yep, the Marmite mushroom stew would go really nice with this. I wish I'd done that actually. I wish I'd got some mushrooms. Right, okay, so we'll just plate it up and then I'll show you the final dish. So if you've got any last burning questions, throw them out and we'll try and answer them. And if you want to connect with me outside of the chef school, I am on Instagram. My Instagram is Nikki_cooks. And at the moment I'm sharing lots of different recipes on my feed, but I'm also doing a daily Ready Steady Cook with my boyfriend who's filming it for me. So every night we just pick a few random ingredients and then I try and create something from them. So we've done things like red cabbage steaks, we've done carrot flatbreads. Last night we did Ready Steady Pud for the first time. We made a chocolate mousse with aquafaba. So yeah, come check us out if you would like to see some more. Right, I'm just going to pop some of these lovely crispy breadcrumbs on top. So this pan has cooled down a little bit now. You can just pop those over the top. And now you've got your creamy high protein pasta with pan grattata. And give you a little view. So thank you guys for watching. Okay, one more question. Debbie says, never tried silken tofu. Does it taste like Alfredo? I don't think I've ever tried Alfredo actually, but it is a lovely, just like creamy and not too heavy and rich sauce. It's a nice kind of light but creamy and satisfying flavour. So maybe try it and let me know if it's like an Alfredo. Okay, little Anne is talking about mushrooms in a sauce to reduce the brown-black colour. Okay, you can remove the black little gills on the underside from your big mushrooms like a portobello and fry those off, and then you won't get so much as of the brown-black colour. That's a lovely tip, thank you, Anne. Cameron, can you do a meringue recipe? I can never make it. I think Day has already done a meringue. I think there is a meringue video. I can't say that I'm a pro at vegan meringue. I've tried it a couple of times. It was okay, but I'm not a pro. But Day definitely is a pro. And I think she has that. I think she has that video already. So check it out. Okay, so we're going to leave it there. If you have any more comments, just pop them on here. And yeah, and Keita, I will just pop my Instagram handle here. There you go. It's Nikki, NICKI_cooks. That's not my second name. That's just, I'm cooking. Okay, so I think we'll leave it there for today, but if you have any more questions, pop them on here or send me a message and we can chat. Fab. Thank you very much.